Hello, everybody, and welcome to MOS at Home. My name is Karen. I am one of the many educators that we have at the Museum of Science here in Boston. And with me today, I have Mike and Sue, and we're going to work to answer a whole bunch of questions that have come in from our visitors at the museum or our viewers to some of our virtual programs over these past 8 or 9 months. Let me have them introduce themselves real quick as well.
Hi, my name is Sue. I'm also an educator at the Museum of Science in Boston. My pronouns are she and her.
And I'm Mike. My pronouns are he and his, and I love talking about animals and handling our animal collection and using them for educational programs in the museum and out of it as well.
Awesome. Like little field trips for our live animals at the museum when they get to visit schools and libraries. Maybe you have even seen some of them at your school or community center somewhere. But I think we should jump right into our huge amounts of questions. We get so many questions about animals. Everybody wants to know more about whatever animal they're really excited about. We are all excited about all animals. We might have our favorites, but I think we're going to jump right in with a local one. I'm going to call out Sue as sort of our resident bird expert here with us today. And we had a question that came in asking, what is the rarest bird we can see on the East Coast of the United States?
That's a cool question. That can really vary. Sometimes rare birds end up here because of wind and weather patterns. If there's a big storm, a mighty wind blowing from a certain direction, birds, especially at migration times, can be blown way off course, and birds that we normally wouldn't see here might turn up briefly along the coast. A really good thing to do is check a website like eBird. They often post listings of rare bird sightings here in New England. And I will tell you the buzz right now is over a bird called the Eurasian widgeon, which is a very small duck-like bird with a kind of bronzy head. And it apparently is a little off course along with a lot of its friends. And they are hanging around in bays and waters and harbors right now. So if you want to know who is temporarily stopping by, a good thing to do is stop by that website, and you can always find out where they were spotted and maybe give it a try. Go try and find them yourselves. But a couple of really cool birds that can be rare here, but show up pretty regularly depending on what's going on, are Atlantic puffins, which are really cool little auklet birds with big beaks that are colorful, often swim offshore. Occasionally they'll come into little protected bays and harbors when the weather's too rough way out in the open ocean, so you can see them that way. There's also boats you can take that will take you out to places where they tend to be found in bigger numbers. And another really cool animal to look for is the snowy owl. So they'll sometimes show up here at migration times looking for prey. If it's a mild enough climate, they'll hang out, especially in places like Logan Airport. They find them all the time. So beautiful owl. We had a couple at the Museum of Science a couple of years ago that hung around for a while on our parking garage. So you never know when they might turn up.
And they were beautiful. I was so excited, even from really, really far away, getting a chance to see those snowy owls.
They are gorgeous. So I have a question now. Apparently this is a two-part question. And it's been asked by Ethan, age 7, and Anya, age 8. First is, why are glass lizards considered to be lizards, even though they don't have any legs? And how long will it take a glass lizard to grow its tail back if it breaks off?
Those are great questions. And European glass lizards are one of the animals that we have at the museum. They are really fascinating. They're found throughout southeastern Europe and are one of about 12 or 13 different species of legless lizard. And they look a lot like snakes. So when you first see one, it looks very much like a snake. It has got a long, thin body, but it is classified as a lizard. And there are some subtle but important differences. One is that snakes have a scale that cover their eyes. So if you enter into a blinking contest with a snake, you'll lose every single time because they never blink. Lizards, however, have eyelids, just like humans do, for the very same reason, to sort of keep out dust and dirt. So you can notice eyelids on legless lizards like the European glass lizard. Another way to tell the difference is by the ear. Lizards have external ears, just like we do. Instead of having a cone that helps amplify the sound like humans do, it's just a hole in the side of the head. But you won't see that in a snake. Snakes instead hear through vibrations through the ground. So they'll hear the movement of their prey, for example, by the vibration, the sound through the ground. So those are a couple of ways to tell the difference. If you're lucky enough to handle some or hold some, like we do at the museum when we're doing programs, they feel a lot different too. Legless lizards have sort of spiny plates called osteoderms all along sort of the tube-like parts of their bodies. And they're very, very rigid. So you can actually, when you hold them, they're not going to move around and twist like a snake does. A snake does that, especially constricting snakes, because it's part of how they eat. They need to squeeze or constrict their prey. So they have an incredibly long, powerful set of muscles along their bodies that they can use to do that with. The lizards, however, don't. So very different sort of body structure. And then a final way that you can tell the difference might be their tails. So if you think about a snake, we have a number at the museum, the tail is just a small portion of the whole length of the lizard's body. But if you think about an iguana, for example, one of the largest lizards that most people know of, the tail is really, really long. It's the same thing with legless lizards. The tail is about half the length of the lizard's body. So very, very different than a snake's tail. So hopefully that answers your question. Now, you did, in the other part of the question, talk about the tails falling off and regrowing, which is an amazing adaptation for survival. So these legless lizards can actually drop their tails. And that's how the species that I talked about, the European glass lizard, gets its name, because the first people who observed this and described this thought of the tails breaking off almost like glass, not like shattering into a million pieces, but the fact that it could break off. And the reason that that happens is that when the tail can break off or separate from the body, it allows the lizard to survive. What happens is the tail sort of moves around and flaps, and the predator grabs onto it and gobbles down the tail while the lizard can escape to live another day. And you asked specifically how long it takes to regrow those tails. It takes a while. So at least 2 months, 60 days, or longer, depending upon the conditions and how much energy, how much food the lizard consumes. So all great questions. You can tell I love talking about.
Never quite the same either, right, Mike? The regrown tail?
Never quite the same, yeah. So it won't necessarily be as long. It might be a slightly different color. So sometimes you can see some color differentiation between the rest of the body and the tail itself. But lots of different animals regenerate limbs, and lizards are some of the most exciting ones. So thinking about lizards and reptiles, Kyra, age 11, has a great question about reptiles, one that I've often thought about, and that's, what is the difference between an alligator and a crocodile?
Yeah, some of my favorite animals. And I think we're specifically talking about the ones that often get confused are the American alligator and the American crocodile. American crocodile is actually extremely endangered. You really only find them living right at the southernmost tip of Florida and down through the Florida Keys. And if you see a crocodile alligator looking animal that is out in the ocean, it is likely the American crocodile, and consider yourself lucky that you happen to spot one, even if from afar. But if you ever look at them up close, there are some things that you can look for to tell the difference between the American alligator and the American crocodile, and has to do mostly with their mouth parts. So if you look at their snout, alligators have a shorter, more rounded snout, whereas a crocodile has a longer and a pointier snout. Or as I like to say, the crocodile's snout looks like the letter A, tall and pointy, and a alligator snout looks like the letter C, because nothing in the English language ever works the way you want it to. So shorter, rounder snout for alligators, longer, narrower, pointier snout for crocodiles. You can also look at their teeth. When the animal's mouth is closed, crocodiles have what I call a snaggly tooth grin. Their bottom teeth are sticking out, their top teeth are sticking out. They look like they need a really good set of braces. Whereas with American alligators, when their mouths are closed, you might see a couple of their top teeth sticking out, but their bottom teeth are completely hidden up inside their mouths, and you can't see those teeth. Now, of course, if you were ever that close to be looking at the teeth of an alligator or a crocodile, you could have some other issues also in place. So hopefully you're looking at it through a nice telescope or binoculars to get that up close look of the alligators or the crocodiles. All right, so I love reptiles, but I also love birds. And this is my all-time favorite group of birds, and that is the owls. So we have this question frequently of how can owls turn their heads so far, or can owls spin their heads around? So I'm hoping we can get an answer to that question.
We do get this question a lot, and it all has to do with how they hunt. Of course, the first thing everybody always notices about owls are those beautiful forward-facing large eyes, which are as big as they can be to collect as much light as they can for flying around in low light conditions. But a little known fact about owl eyes is that they aren't round like ours. Now, you know that if you want to spy on someone, but you don't want them to know that you're looking at them, you can hold your head perfectly still and then roll your eyeballs over to one side and kind of peer at them. Owls can't do that because their eyes aren't basically round like ours. If you imagine them, imagine the part that's on the outside, that big part of the eye that you see is like the end of a soup can lying on its side. They're really cylinders. And because of that shape, they're really fixed in the owl skull. An owl cannot roll its eyes around. And yet to be a really good hunter, you got to have good peripheral vision. So over time, birds have adapted to be able to move their heads a little more flexibly. Now, all birds have twice as many neck bones as we do. Humans have 7. Every bird has at least 14. Some of the birds with really long necks, like swans, have even more than 14 neck bones. And the more neck bones you have, the more flexible you can be. So to compensate for the fact that their eyes are fixed, owls can use those extra bones to be able to turn their head well over one shoulder and then bring it back and turn it well over another, getting a pretty good view around their heads, about 270 degrees. So a lot of people say, yeah, they can turn their heads all the way around. Not really. If you're imagining something turning its head all the way around, you're thinking it starts in this direction and continues all the way around, like Linda Blair on The Exorcist. Well, what you do is snap your neck. Of course, they've got bones just like we do. So basically what they do is they turn it pretty far over one shoulder, and then you'll see a screech owl snap it back. They also have a special circulatory system that's set up for a little bit of play on either side, because you can imagine turning your head too far, you might cut off your blood supply on one side or the other. And they have actually little pockets in their neck that the arteries can tuck into as they crumple up on one side, and an area they can expand into as the head stretches on the other side. So a lot of adaptations to moving their head that way, but they cannot make a complete circle. If you remember one thing, remember that. So now that we've talked a little bit about owls, one of my favorites too, Karen, one of the things we always get are all like the best of, you know, like what's the biggest, what's the smallest, what's the oldest, what's the largest. So we get questions like that all the time. And Lila, age 10, would really like to know what is the smallest mammal in the world. And Mary Beth, also age 10, would like to know which is the largest.
Excellent. Those are great questions. And actually, we'll start with the smallest. And there's kind of a tie going on. The largest doesn't have a tie. I'll get to that in just a moment. So currently, of animals that we know of that are alive on the planet today, there's sort of 3 contenders for the smallest mammal. Again, mammals covered with fur, endothermic or warm-blooded, feed their babies milk. Those are all characteristics of mammals. We have the bumblebee bat, the Etruscan shrew, and the pygmy possum. Now, each of these animals is only about an inch to an inch and a half long. So that is incredibly tiny, and they all weigh about 2 grams or less, which I saw one comparison, that is lighter than a dime. So the 10-cent piece that you have in your wallet, These little teeny tiny mammals are even lighter than that, which is pretty amazing. And they all fit into their nice ecosystem niches across the world. They don't all live in one place. But so those are sort of the contenders for the smallest mammal. Again, the largest mammal has no competition at all. The largest mammal that is alive on the planet today is also the largest vertebrate animal to ever exist on the planet Earth. So this largest mammal beats out all of the dinosaurs and their sizes, all of those prehistoric swimming beasts, and it happens to be an animal. The largest mammal is a blue whale. Now, blue whales, as I said, they live in the ocean, and that might be one reason why they could get so big, because you're a little bit more buoyant when you're in the water as opposed to in the air with gravity kind of pulling down on you. They're over 100 feet long. Your average school bus is 30 to 35 feet long. So you can imagine like 3 school buses all lined up nose to tail. That's how long a blue whale is. And they weigh over 200 tons. Your average sort of sedan that you drive around probably weighs around 1.5 to 2 tons. So they are incredibly heavy. They are incredibly long, and they have lived here on Earth for quite a while. There are some museums and other institutions that have whale skeletons, and you can't even imagine how giant they are until you see these skeletons hanging. So I encourage you, look up blue whales, learn more about them, and maybe someday get a chance to go out and see one of those skeletons. So that's sort of the extreme in the mammal category. And this is an interesting one because we're going to shy away from our vertebrate, or backboned animals. And Timmy, who is 9 years old, has asked, how smart is an octopus?
Sorry about that. Excellent question, Karen. You may have heard stories of octopuses predicting World Cup winners, for example. A couple of tournaments ago, there was an octopus who would apparently sort of swim to the edge of the tank and sort of point to one side or the other to try and predict which team was going to win. Obviously, they don't know anything about football or soccer and probably don't care too much about that, but they are incredibly intelligent animals, although that intelligence is different than, the intelligence we might think of for mammals, for example, like the whales that you mentioned, or even dolphins. So their brains are certainly different. They've got a sort of a collection of nerves that create a central nervous system called ganglia, and they are incredibly sort of condensed and networked for cephalopods. Cephalopods are animals that include octopuses and squids and cuttlefish, and they are some of the most intelligent invertebrates in the world. So you think about what they can do. Well, with those amazing brains comes some amazing adaptations. So one is camouflage. So they can actually change their coloring based on their environment. And scientists have explored this in different ways by creating sort of what would seem like impossible situations for an animal to camouflage itself in, such as a chessboard type pattern. So imagine black and white squares or something like a checkerboard, and you put a cuttlefish there, and actually can change its coloring so that part of it's black, part of it's white, and then more of it's black and more of it's white. It's absolutely incredible to see. So these nervous systems help those animals coordinate all of that coloring and shading, which is one sign of intelligence. Another is that they're really good at solving problems. So octopuses are great escape artists, and it's very difficult to keep them in tanks. So there's actually stories of octopuses sort of traveling outside of their tanks, moving to tanks next door, eating the fish and animals in those tanks, and then making their way back, all while the keepers had no idea that this was going on.
What you're saying is Finding Dory and the octopus is real life, not just cartoon.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, it's pretty incredible. They also are able to use those brains of theirs to coordinate in different ways than humans can. So of course, we can grasp and pinch with our fingers. They can do that independently with all of the different suckers along their tentacles. So they can use that to open things. So I mentioned sort of their great escape abilities. Part of it's because they can grab on and pretty much with any part of their tentacle from the tip all the way and towards the central part of the body, turn and twist and manipulate objects in different ways. So yeah, they're really, really impressive. Maybe not at predicting football matches or soccer matches, but pretty much anything else that the sea world could throw at them for sure. All right, so we are going to go back to a question about birds, and I mentioned sort of octopuses doing some strange and unusual things, but they don't really communicate like birds do. So this is a question from Maria, age 11. How do birds communicate or talk to one another?
Really good question, Maria. I'm glad to wrap up with this one. Basically, they have a lot of different ways of communicating. The obvious one is because we hear birds sing all the time. We know they communicate that way. Little known fact, it's not just the males that sing, but that's another story. But they do have other ways of communicating, also with body postures. They can signify irritation or being intimidated or trying to threaten another bird. They also use their beautiful colored feathers and patterns on their feathers to communicate messages like their attractiveness to males or females, to try and find a mate, to also establish territories. So there's a lot of different ways that birds have to communicate. By the way, songs are not the only thing that they have for vocalizations. They have all different kinds of calls that signify all different kinds of things. And if you're back in the museum, check out our Birds World exhibit, because you can play a lot of the different sounds that birds here in New England make and get very familiar with them.
I think we might have time for one more question. And I'm going to take this one because this is one of my favorite questions, especially at this time of year as we get into the winter. So Audrey, who is age 5, mentions, I heard polar bear fur isn't really white, it just looks white. Is that true? And Audrey, answer to that is yes. Their fur is not white. It is actually what we call translucent, meaning it has no pigment. It's actually clear. What is amazing is that the skin of a polar bear is actually black. You can't see that because all of these clear fur like hairs that are all over the polar bear, the way the light is bouncing in and among that really dense fur, that is affecting how our eyes perceive it. So the fur appears white to us. We don't see that black skin underneath. And it's all about how the light plays on the fur of the polar bear itself. So I was like thinking about polar bears as we get into the winter months here. But we are pretty much out of time today. So I want to thank you all for joining us, and especially Mike and Sue. I don't know if either of you have any final words of wisdom when it comes to live animals.
Just that if you don't have a lot of wildlife outside your window because you live in the middle of a city and you do have pets, you can learn a lot about animal behavior just from watching your own pets at home.
And I'll just say that you can see a large collection of animals at the Museum of Science, from monkeys to snakes, legless lizards, and amazing axolotls that'll regrow limbs. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I encourage you guys, if you do get the chance, even in the middle of the city, there are a lot of animals to be seen and heard, so certainly check those out as well. I hope you guys had fun hearing the answers to some of our favorite viewer questions all about animals today. And again, if you get the opportunity to visit the Museum of Science, that would be awesome. But you can also visit us virtually. We're doing live streams almost daily. You can search on the Museum of Science website to find out exactly when and what we are doing. But regardless, I hope you learned a few new animal facts today and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.